of the Rules and Strategic Planning Standing Committee to order. So first of all, just as far as folks who are in attendance today, let's just make sure I know we have quorum, but so we've got Supervisors Glassbrenner, Fleming, Cosgrove, Frank, Brewer, Gentis, and myself here. I know that Mr. Seep is out for a funeral today, so he's excused. And then also I think Supervisor Rudersdorf is going to be here for part of the meeting and not the rest of it. So she also may be popping in here. So agenda item number 2, proof of notification. There was proper proof of notification. Thank you, Mr. Langrek, for posting that downstairs. Agenda item number 3, agenda approval. We've got a 15-point agenda today, so I'm looking for a motion to approve. Okay, we'll do motion by Cosgrove and second by Gentis. Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Okay, that motion's carried. We have an agenda. Agenda item number 4, public comments. Are there any comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the consent items portion of the agenda. So I'm just going to read this section. We're going to try this out today for this committee and see how this works. So consent items are routine in nature and not believed to be controversial. The committee may approve all consent items in one motion after a reading of recommended actions, which shall each be entered into the recorded minutes. Any committee member may request that any item or items be removed from the consent portion of the agenda for discussion. So I'm going to go through each agenda item and read the motion that would be entailed for each one. So approval of minutes, that would be a motion to approve minutes from the May 5th, 2022 meeting of this committee. Agenda item number 6, amendment to policy on authority of management, roles of members and chairs of committees, boards, and commissions. So this would be a motion to recommend resolution to the Richland County Board to amend the policy on authority of management, roles or members and chairs of committees, boards, and commissions to include a policy title change and added duties to the county board chair. Agenda item number 7 is an amendment to policy on policy establishments. And this will be a motion to recommend resolution to the Richland County Board to amend the policy establishment to include added authorities to sponsoring committee, boards, and commissions and added responsibilities to policy custodians. Agenda item number 8 is an amendment to Richland County Board body structure, Court Security Committee, and Fair Recycling and Parks Committee. And this would be a motion to recommend to the county board amending the body structure document to add the Court Security Committee and insert financial monitoring responsibility for the Fair Recycling and Parks Committee. Agenda item number 9 is an update to Civil Rights Compliance Plan. This would be a motion to approve the Civil Rights Compliance Plan. And finally, agenda item number 10 is repeal and replacement of ordinance number 99-11 regarding disposal and destruction of county records. And this would be a motion to approve an ordinance repealing ordinance number 99-11 and adopting the general schedules for county governments as established by the State of Wisconsin Public Records Board for use in the disposal of obsolete county records. So would any member like to request that any item or items be removed from this portion of the agenda for discussion? Yes. So just let me know which ones you want to have removed, and then we'll pull those down. Especially if you have any questions or, if we vote on these all in one motion, it basically gives our consent, and these will all move forward. And I believe these all move forward to the county board with the exception of agenda item number 5, which is just approval of our minutes. Are there any that you want to have? And it's okay to move things down. I don't want people to feel like just because something's in the consent portion that we can't discuss them. It's just it's a tool to help us focus on our discussion items. Okay, so, yeah, go ahead. Okay, 7. Okay, any other items?
With item number 8.
Okay. Any other items?
I think I did once. Once upon a time.
Okay, number 9. So we've got 7, 8, and 9. Any others? Okay, then a motion would be in order to approve the motions within agenda items number 5, 6, and 10.
So moved. I will make that motion.
Motion by Brewer,
Second.
second by Glassbrenner. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. So that takes care of 5, 6, and 10, so we can cross those off our list. And let's go to agenda item number 7, amendment to policy on policy establishment. Mr. Langreich.
Mr. Chair, looking today for, computer here is kind of grumpy. 1 second. Pull up the document. Do it. Motion today, recommend resolution to the Richland County Board to amend the policy establishment to include added authorities to the sponsoring committee boards and commissions and added responsibilities to policy custodian. Background on this item is in August 18th, 2020, Richland County adopted a policy establishment or policy on policy, which sounds like it's the EPA of all bureaucracy. You're making a policy on policy, so if we can avoid using that so I don't get snickered at, that would be great. And establishing a methodology for policy standardization authority. As the county board continues down a path of 1, providing leadership by policy, 2, disseminating authorities to its representative committees, boards, commissions, and staff, and then 3, standardizing operations, the following changes are presented in a draft markup document is brought before the committee for consideration. The major changes in this document that you'll see is amendment to the purpose language, expanded responsibilities to the administrative custodian, expanded authorities to the sponsoring committee, board, or commission. And I will pull up the document here and we'll walk through the different changes on it. I will try to pull up the document here. Come on. And then I will share it with you on the screen. There we go. Can you see me up there? Okay, item from the top to the bottom here. First one is we're changing the sponsoring committee name, no longer rules and resolutions, but this body here with its new name, expanding the purpose to include that the purpose of this policy is to also establish authority of approval, amendments, and interpretation, and to designate dissemination responsibilities of the policies. One of the main kind of language changes here in this is to allow for the sponsoring committee to change the policy without going forward resolution of the county board. So some of the constraints on that is, of course, if you have elements that are huge and impacting on the county and should still be deferred to go to the county board floor, that's done. But we're saying on here is that you can take policies and you can designate them to standing committees or to bodies, and those bodies have the authorities to change those without the need for resolution to come back to the county board when we have policy changes. Language change in.
Just make sure Supervisor Gentis is interested in an example.
So an example of that would be like in the consent item today, we changed in our authorities of management. The proposal that we took by consent was to change the title of the document and then to add authorities to the chair or responsibilities to the chair position of attending the tech things and those natures. So rather than having to take that all the way through the county board by resolution, The county board is saying, this is your policy standing committee. You have the authority to change this. But then with that too, though, we have then responsibilities to the custodian to make sure that that policy is being disseminated and understood and adhered to.
Disseminated to who? Everyone? I mean, I guess, what does that mean?
To the parties involved to make sure it's properly posted and the departments are made aware of it, and those types of natures of, like we would have in our resolution language that would say, this, hereby this policy is posted in the clerk and the administrator's office and found on our website. So kind of fulfilling that role that we had by resolution of saying, if a committee makes a change to this policy, which they have authority to do, then the custodian's responsible on informing all the departments so that they understand that there's been a policy change. And so under here, then you'll see underneath the added language for custodian is that we have to post and disseminate changes and provide administrative interpretation on policies if questions arise. And then we have on here that an approval body that states the Richland County Committee, boards or commissions shall initially approve the policy before the policy takes into effect. So with this, like all types of policies are still going to be approved initially by the county board if you have a new policy. But once that policy is established then by the county board, the supervisory committee then, unless specified, has the ability then to amend and change that policy. So in the language then with sponsoring committee changes then from what we had as to make interpretation of the policy and make recommendations to the board would be amendments to the policy or to defer the Richland County Board when such changes are determined to be beyond the purpose of the original policy, which we have purpose language at the top, beyond the authority of the sponsoring committee, boards or commissions, which you have your authorities established through your structure document, or at the desire of a simple majority vote by the sponsoring committee, boards or commissions. If you feel like it should be deferred until the county board, you still have that option to do that.
So under D, oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, can I ask him a question?
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so under D, where it talks about the designated authorities and responsibilities, is that an exhaustive list of what kind of changes you can make without going through the county board?
Oh, which page are you on?
I'm sorry, page
I
4.
was there. Okay, thank you. So under page 4 here, we have, these are the added responsibilities for the custodian. So this is what your policy custodian, the example on this one is, this group becomes the sponsoring committee. I'm the custodian of the record so that it's my responsibility then to follow through with these actions that are here.
Okay, so when you're saying that a supervising committee or custodian can make changes, is this the list of kinds of changes that they can make? I'm just trying to be clear on what we're saying here. You said that if there's an initial policy would have to
Yep.
go to the county board to be approved.
Correct.
Okay, so when you have a standing policy and you want to make changes, this is the list of the types of changes you can make without it going through the county board?
I wouldn't really call this a list of the changes. This is more of the custodial duties.
So, because this says you could make changes to the policy such as typos or formatting. But
Oh, yep. With that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, so I'm wondering, so you're saying this is even broader than that. You could completely kind of amend a policy without it going to,
Not a custodian. As myself, this is on here where if we've got a typo or we have a name change or the index didn't indicate that this chapter, the intentions with the custodian make non-substantial changes to the policy such as a typo or formatting with notification given to the sponsoring committee was if we caught a word typo that we had the wrong there in place or some grammatical type of an error, that we can go ahead and change that. In the next meeting, I'm going to tell you that we had the wrong verb tense or something of that
I
nature.
think I was just looking for clarification. I didn't understand the difference between custodian and supervising committee.
Okay.
So then the supervising committee could make, would they still need to send an initial policy through to county board?
Yes. Yes.
Can they make then any other types of changes that they want to policies?
The language says right now amendments to the policy, when such, I'm sorry, page 2 of 6. So on page 2 of 6 underneath paragraph, what is C Roman numeral 6, we would say that the language has changed that they have the authority to make amendments to the policy or defer to the county board when such changes are determined to be beyond the purpose of the original policy. beyond the authority of the sponsoring committee, board, or commission, or is desired by a simple majority vote of the sponsoring committee, board, or commission.
Does this include all of the board and committees that we now have on our structure? So the smaller ones that are not rolled into one of the bigger, no, I guess those are all rolled in. I'm thinking, for example, suppose they wouldn't be making a policy change. Trying to think of an example here of those smaller committees.
You could, I mean, I see this too, where you may have like, what's like one of our standout ones. If we had Simon's Auditorium Board and they wanted to have a specified type of a policy there, they kind of operate off on the same type of thing as what would be expected then, as the county board initially approves the policy, and then they would delegate or relinquish control to change that policy to that body. But again, then it's still, you still, some of your catches on there are the purpose of the policy. If it's expanded beyond the purpose of the policy and say we wanted to start pushing in things in here that's like in this policy that starts impacting wages or use of equipment or some other type of thing that's really outside of the purpose of the policy, then I would be saying, well, let's stop the bus here. This is kind of going outside the purpose of the language policy. We should be bringing back to the county board.
Okay, thoughts from other committee members about this? So we're looking for a motion on this one to recommend a resolution to the Richland County Board to amend the policy on authority of management roles or members and chairs of committees, boards, and commissions to include a policy title change and added duties. Oh no, I'm on the wrong one, I bet. Sorry about that. Strike what I just said. So we're looking here for a motion to recommend a resolution to the Richland County Board to amend the policy establishment to include added authorities to sponsoring committee, boards, and commissions, and added responsibilities to policy custodians. Would anyone like to make that motion?
I will make that motion. This is Bob.
Okay, motion by Frank,
I'll second.
second by Rudersdorf. Any further discussion on that motion? Okay, if not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Let's go to agenda item number 8, amendment to Richland County Board body structure, Court Security Committee, and Fair Recycling and Parks Committee. And I can handle this one. I'm not sure if Clerk of Circuit Court Kleist is on the line or not. She may pipe in. But she might be busy too. We chatted about this ahead of time. So Ms. Kleist let me know that the committee structure document doesn't include a description of the Court Security Committee. It never did include a description of the Court Security Committee. It was in our committee assignment list, and we had some members assigned to it, but there was never a description for it. So when we went through the restructuring, there was a line added under the Public Safety Standing Committee that they would be in charge of issues of security for the courts. Ms. Kleist let me know that there's a Supreme Court rule, it's linked here in our cover sheet, that each county's court system shall have a court security committee. It has a makeup that's prescribed by them. So if you go to attachment AA, this is our body structure document, and the changes are tracked as it relates to the Court Security Committee. So it's a 23-page document, so you have to go to the C's. These are in alphabetical order, and it's on page 7. So the Supreme Court rules in there is letter A, the purpose is listed. There's 23 policies and activities that are listed under that Supreme Court rule. So rather than putting them all in here, the reference is there. The committee has to meet quarterly, and then the membership is listed here. And it includes the chair of the county board or their designee. And then all those other ones listed there. And then in the cover sheet, there's 3 bullet points that highlight other changes in the body structure document. So the Court Security Committee would report to the Public Safety Standing Committee for matters relating to the county board. The responsibility for court facilities security is removed from the Public Safety Standing Committee. So if you go to that section of the body structure document, you'll see that stricken out. And then the other thing that is kind of related to this is the Property Committee currently has responsibility for security of the courthouse. Well, under this Supreme Court rule, there's a carve out for this Court Security Committee. So what I did is I added a sentence under this would not be the Property Committee anymore, it'd be called the Public Works Standing Committee, leaving that authority for security of the courthouse, but then carving out that exception for the court facilities. Court facilities is defined in the Supreme Court rule as not just the courtroom, but any other rooms, even the parking lot, related to the operation of the circuit court. And then there's one other change that's highlighted in the document, the cover sheet and the attachment, and that is to add the financial monitoring language that's under all the other standing committees to the Fair, Recycling, and Parks Standing Committee. I missed that when I was making all those recommendations for the restructuring. So does anyone have any questions for me about these changes? Yeah, go ahead. Supervisor Rudersdorf.
Yes, so I have been a part of the Fair and Recycling and Parks before they merged. I guess I'm kind of confused as to where this fits in because we're a working committee. And so they would be part of the standing committee, correct? Of the Fair, Recycling, and Parks, so they would be meeting when we all meet?
Well,
Or can they meet separately from us? Because we meet every month.
I mentioned something about a quarterly meeting.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking
Yeah.
about? So that was for the Court Security Committee.
Okay,
That was not related to the Fair, Parks, and Recycling Committee. So the Fair, Parks, and Recycling Committee can still meet on a monthly basis. These changes don't affect that.
okay, so they're not meeting with, yeah, so they're part of that committee structure, right, over that committee, correct?
Yeah, Fair, Recycling, and Parks is one of our 7 standing committees.
Right.
This Court Security Committee is a totally separate committee underneath the county board structure that we're required by Supreme Court
Okay,
rule to have. So these two issues are both lumped in so that they can go to the county board all at once, but they are separate changes
Okay.
from each other. So they should be thought of separately.
okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. Okay, try me. Go ahead, Supervisor Gentis.
I thought you were trying to make them be more incorporated, and now you're not incorporating them. What am I missing here?
So I think the misconnect here is on the court security is still going to be bringing issues to. So the only change to Fair and Recycling is just adding in the added responsibilities. The only requirements that impact Fair and Recycling is going to be the added quarterly checking with the budgets. They're not going to be affiliated with the court security, if that's where the wires got crossed potentially.
Yeah, if you go to the top of page 9 of OAA body structure document, you'll see highlighted in red the financial monitoring change. When we were discussing this issue last month, I noticed that I had missed that under that standing committee. So then when this Court Security Committee thing came up, I thought, oh, it's a good opportunity to get that cleaned up.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Glassbrenner to approve.
I'll second that.
Second by Rudersdorf. Yep, Mr. Frank.
In looking at the document under background, it says the Court Security Committee shall report to the Public Safety Standing Committee for matters Responsibility of the court facilities shall be removed, and responsibilities for court facility, and the third bullet then is responsibility for court facilities should also be removed from public works. So who is then handling the court facilities security?
The Court Security Committee.
The committee does follow. Okay, just want to make sure.
Yep.
It was being removed in 2 places. I want to make sure that was covered then the other one. Thank you.
And a little more background on this that Ms. Kleiss told me is the Court Security Committee has not met for years. There was some sort of an issue between the county board and the judge regarding funding. And now that we have a new judge coming on board, Ms. Kleiss told me that it's likely the new judge will want to reconvene this Court Security Committee. So hopefully we can hit a reset button on the relationship and figure out how to make it work.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. So that takes us to agenda item number 9, an update to the Civil Rights Compliance Plan. I wonder if the person who wanted this removed, was that you, Supervisor Glassbrenner? If you want to start with a question?
Sure, thank you. I just was curious, how often do we do this? Has it been done before, and what did that include?
A couple different questions there. So the first one is every 3 years. And then the second one is, yes, we do have a current plan that is posted, but we should have had it updated, I believe, back in January. So then in working with Troy and his folks down, Matt Honer helped us in updating our plan with recommendations then too on how to keep our plan more up to date and vibrant with keeping up with our actions that we found that we can still improve upon. One of the big items is tracking on our demographics. Cheryl worked a lot of hours with Matt in putting together, I think we have some tracking forms now that we've kind of fed out to departments and saying, rather than until we get to the next 3 years and try to go back in time and capture our demographics, please help us by keeping our service demographics up to date the best we can. So then with clarification on that, then we can adopt our new plan and then try to maintain compliance and serving, meeting the service needs of our folks.
And I see that on our website, if you go to the homepage, it's under it's under county info. There's a Civil Rights Plan 2018 to 2021. So this one will cover 2022 to 2025. So maybe it just needs a cover sheet to say that. That might help. The other one has a cover sheet that says the period it covers. I'm sure that's in your Civil Rights Plan.
Well, and I see on his cover resolution that he did say that. I
Yeah.
just didn't.
Great. Okay. Any other questions? Not looking for a motion to approve that.
This is Bob. I'll move.
Motion by Frank,
Second.
second by Cosgrove. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. We've got an updated civil rights compliance plan that will go to the county board now. Okay, so that takes us to the remaining discussion items. Item number 11 is the comprehensive plan scope and responsible committee or committees. Let's see, Supervisor Glassbrenner, do you want to start the conversation here, or do you want me to attempt to? I'm happy to if you want, but go ahead
Sure.
if you want.
It was included in our strategic plan that we would complete a comprehensive plan. And so I just started looking at, and I'm sorry, on the agenda item cover, you can kind of see some background that lists what our current plan states. There's kind of two separate things here, which I do want to talk about that a little bit, because we mentioned a comprehensive plan by 2024, and then down lower it says develop a comprehensive capital facilities plan, which that's a little bit different. However, our comprehensive plan, I believe was completed for the county, was completed in 2007. And statutorily, we are required to have that updated. Now, most counties, I don't believe Troy's going to speak to that, haven't specifically updated theirs in quite a while, but I did want to start looking at what does that entail, you know, what do we have currently in the plan. So Troy, thank you, is here to talk a little bit about that. He also prepared a document, which is 11A in your folder, that talks a little bit about general requirements. He'll talk about it. But then it does go through, in the statute, there's 9 specific requirements that have to be included in your comprehensive plan. So he does have those each listed then in the blue spreadsheet. So this is just for discussion as far as, you know, what we might want to do, how we might want to approach it. And actually, Sean, you might be able to speak to this a little bit. In the cover that you put here, it says that currently this is given responsibility to the Land and Zoning Standing Committee to do the comprehensive plan. So that would be another discussion that we would need to have, is if we are thinking of actually going forward and looking at updating this, do we want to leave it in that committee, or do we want to look at changing that as well? So did you want
That
to-
was well stated. The only thing I'd add is that I asked Supervisor Luck if she could have that discussion with the Land and Zoning Standing Committee to see if they're comfortable with having it moved over to this committee to get their opinion before we take any action on that to the county board. So yeah, Troy, if you wanna come up to one of the mics here. So this is Troy Magid from the Southwest Regional Planning Commission, and he prepared 11A, which is the attachment. And Supervisor Gentis, did you wanna say
I have a
something?
question. Okay, so if it moves over to here, so do we have a contract with Troy that we're doing this, or why are we working? I mean, what's the situation? I don't know how that all works.
Well, let me just speak to that just a little bit. So the last time that the comprehensive plan was done, it was done in conjunction with Southwest Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. And again, that was back in 2007. I brought him here just for some added background on what a comprehensive plan would actually include. It's a lot. If you look at the statute, that, you know, there's a lot of stuff packed into that statute, and the actual comprehensive plan that we have is a lengthy document. So just wanted to hear, you know, his insight, and then actually have him talk through, you know, what his commission could do as far as helping us, and what funding there might be available for that, or what we'd be looking at. So this is just for discussion for us, not, you know, there's been no decisions made or anything like that. Yeah. Thank you, Troy, for coming.
Because I updated a spell, so if you are curious to take a look at the update, there's just a few on the second page, a yellow highlight. It's not material, it's not substantial, but I think to start off with Linda's point, I'm very happy to talk about state requirements, state mandates. We did the last plan. Our old plans looked like this. Yours kind of looks like this. It's how we used to do business, and we'll leave it there. I find it hard to use, and so the new way that we are doing things are much more lean. We're not getting paid by the word. We want to make something that you can use and has value. So this is Boscobel. It's a city plan. I know it's going to be different, but we're looking to make something usable for you. And that's why I was talking with Ingrid on the phone, Supervisor Glassbrown on the phone. You know, I'd rather have more conversations about value and what you want a plan for and what's required, as opposed to diving into a document. So at the top of the document that you were provided, it just talks about the statutory requirements. The plan requires an update every 10 years, but it doesn't tell you what an update is, which is nice. You can make it your own. When we work with townships, sometimes there's almost no update. We had them review their goals, their future land use plan, and that's the legal piece of this, is any rezoning has to be compliant with, consistent with the comprehensive plan, which is primarily the future land use. It can also be your goals. So if you say we don't want any high density residential housing in this area, and then you permit one, you're in conflict with your goals. So that's the consistency requirement that drove the state law in 2000. It's very easy to become compliant. So with townships, we'll just simply help them comply. With cities and villages who are facing a different future than they did 20 years ago, we'll go a lot deeper. So I don't, you know, the conversation is, what does the county want, and what do you want to plan for, and that kind of thing. So your update could be compliant. We could look at your goals and your future land use and go from there. We could also fill in the gaps or start implementing some of the stuff that was identified in your strategic plan. And I had that on the kind of the 11/17 document. All of your ordinances must be consistent with the comprehensive plan, primarily that zoning and land subdivision. Shoreland, wetland, floodplain, those are going to be consistent just by nature of the law. But and then as Ingrid was mentioned, the plan is required to contain various elements. And I framed the various elements. I framed the larger document, the sort of spreadsheet looking document around those elements. Now they say contain these elements. You don't have to do the same amount of work on each element. You probably have your issues and opportunities by and large done with your strategic plan, right? It's demographics, it's workforce, it's housing. We may spend a little time there. We don't have to spend any necessary, anyhow, you can focus on these elements as needed. I guess I'll leave it there. There are a couple of elements that come up in counties and cities and villages that aren't required, and I have those on the separate second page of the spreadsheet. Some counties want to spend more time on public health. If they have issues with opioids, meth, if they have issues with, what do you want to call it, solid waste, if they have issues with obesity, these sort of metrics that come up in your public health departments, that could be an issue to spend more time on if there's a county role there. Also education. Some counties are getting more engaged in workforce. You all own a campus. Is that a place to spend time? It's not required, but those are areas that could be further developed. So that's kind of the top section. I just wanted to go over the requirements. I gave you a couple of links to some county plans. You can see the diversity of these plans. And then you are under no obligation to use us. We always love to work with you and would love to continue doing so. But if you do choose to do so, I just gave you an indication of kind of how we would think about doing some of this work. And I have that down below under our approach. We're going to create a document that you want to use, and we're going to spend more time up front identifying the value of the plan and honing in on a scope before we do work. Because county plans are just different. You've got a strategic plan. What do you want to use it for? And build a scope of work around that so that we deliver value. So I'll take a breather, I guess. That's big picture. And then we could go through the spreadsheet if that's desirable or if there's any other questions on that.
Okay, who's got questions for Mr. Maggie?
Troy, I see that Richland Center just did their comp plan.
Yeah.
Seeing as they're the largest municipality in the county, I would think that the county plan is probably going to incorporate most of that. Would be my thinking at this point, but it's probably time to spread out to the rural parts of our county as well. So.
We've also recently assisted Lone Rock. We're wrapping up Boaz this summer. We've been in touch with Casanova trying to get on their agenda. So we are hitting the municipalities. And to your point, Marty, we probably would look to review those plans and see what could be incorporated and coordinated. I think there's value there, yes. Cities and villages have different levels of services. Oftentimes counties and county plans look at the unincorporated areas. But we should spend some time figuring out that relationship, yes.
I know that the Richland Economic Development Committee wants to look at land use countywide. And to that end, we've invited our Mike Bendel to come to a red meeting and talk to us about that. And he commented to me in the discussion that, well, some people have commented that our current land use regulations have prevented growth in the county. So, and that's his read of comments that he's heard. I don't think that's what he believes, but I'm not speaking for Mike here. All I'm saying is that there has been discussion and we need to follow up on this, and having it incorporated in the comprehensive plan would be a first step.
One thing that I know Supervisor Frank, you brought up last time and you and I talked about yesterday, so I was trying to get some more information about it, was that there is what's called a land information plan. Did I get that right? You sent, okay, you sent me the copy of that last night. So under existing county planning efforts under land use, we have a land information plan.
I believe that's tied to your parcel fabric and the GIS dollars. So that is more land records modernization and the funding tied from the DOA. You could potentially use some of that funding. That's a good point. We'd have to, I'm aware of the funding and its strings. Most often that funding is used to fund GIS staff or software to do parcel mapping and create the parcel fabric. And then the other half portion that it would be used for typically is to fund surveyors to do section corner remonumentation. There could be some flexibility down the road depending on the funding streams and how you choose to allocate that funding and how your existing allocations are. It's not the neatest tie into this, but if you plan ahead and there's value, there could be opportunity for that. That's a good point.
Is anyone, I wonder, have any thoughts on whether the comprehensive plan moves from the Land and Zoning Committee to the Rules and Strategic Planning Committee? Is anyone, maybe how should I say it, opposed to that? That would be something additional on our plate. I don't know if the Supervisor Frank, have you been on the zoning committee for recently, or you're new to it? Okay. Has anyone been on the zoning
I've
committee?
been on the zoning committee. I'm still very perplexed with, about 13 years ago, we did a complete comprehensive planning and it was never incorporated. And I think those plans are still sitting out there, and you're talking about development. I mean, there was a lot of plan of cluster housing in the community and how it was better land use and keeping more land for agriculture and nicer areas for housing. And it just never was, by the county board, was never put forth. And those plans are still existing in places. I don't know if that would be then under land and zoning again or here, but somehow we have to, that information was done with every single township. So I'm not sure whether that should be moved into here or not. That's my.
Mr. Chairman, my
Yeah.
thoughts on it would be to move it to this committee so we can get the ball rolling, because it really is more of a strategy, and it's what we need to talk about, our strategy. My experience on the land use committee, even though its name would imply that, is it's primarily looking at a farmer so-and-so wants to section off 2 acres of 18 so his son can build a house. I mean, those are important things. Those are important decisions, but that primarily is that committee's function.
I agree that's what it's been doing, and I don't mind it moving here, but that is not what it's really supposed to be doing. It should be doing more, and it's not.
Okay, well, maybe we'll stay tuned. We'll see what the Land and Zoning Committee says. And this kind of bleeds into our next agenda item too on the work plan. And
Did you want him to go?
it sounds like, would you like him to go through the spreadsheet?
If he doesn't go through it, I did have one question. So
Why don't you ask your question, and then if you want him to go through it, definitely say that.
So on the cover letter, I'm sorry. On the cover sheet for this, it references the fact that we're also looking at doing, trying to pull it up here. The Comprehensive Capital Facilities Plan, which Administrator Langreck has been working on. I was just wondering if that would be included under utilities, community facilities, like would that potentially inform it or work with him on that? Or is that too separate, completely separate?
I think it comes down to agility. If this is a longer operation and you're already underway looking at facilities, that, just like the farmland preservation and land and water, if you're moving ahead with something, it could be incorporated in here after the fact. If there's a lot of scoping discussion here and you need to make that decision, you shouldn't hold up on that, right? I'm very pragmatic in this sense, let's be agile and actionable. And so you're not going to stop working until you have a plan if you kind of know what needs to be done, right? This is more of a formal kind of long-range document. And I don't know the nature of the work that's being done with facilities, but I know from strategic planning, we've kind of talked about that.
Okay.
This document would probably be a good place to work on the highway level infrastructure, culverts, roads, bridges, and kind of create a plan for replacement and maintenance and coordination around that. I think is my gut feeling. But again, I'm operating on partial information, not knowing where the other work's going.
And Mr. Chairman and Troy, a good example of that would be the proposal to move the hospital down below town. And that, I think that's from the beginning to the end. I think it was mentioned it could be 5 years or even less. And so to that end, we should be planning the roundabouts we're going to build down there, 3 of them, and the new highway structure, because this is millions of dollars of infrastructure that has to be done.
Yeah. And the city did reflect upon that potential move of the hospital and potential reuse of that space. But you're right, that's the kind of thing that now you're how many years out from actual occupancy of the hospital. Now's
Planning has to start now, though.
Right, because you're talking to DOTs involved in the state route and all that business. You bet. Yep.
Well, and I think part of what we need to do here is we need to be thinking about timing in the work plan. So in our adopted strategic plan, we say that we will complete a comprehensive plan by 2024 that's what our currently adopted strategic plan says. Then in the work plan, Mr. Langreck has put in here, and I see you made an adjustment after the last meeting. So thank you. I think you said something about determining the scope, establishing the process and goals. I'm not sure if that was in there last time. So this is kind of bleeding into the next agenda item I was mentioning. So I think part of what we need to do over the next few months is figure out who's going to be responsible for oversight of the comp plan, and then what would the goal date be? What's the scope? And then I'm assuming we're going to have to come up with a budget. And I appreciate seeing all these ideas that you brought us about what potential outside funding sources could be, because we'll have to be thinking about that. If we're going to complete this by 2024, I don't know what that means exactly. If we're going to complete it by the end of our term, we'd be adopting it in March of 2024. If it means by the end of the year, that's a little different. But if we mean by March 2024, we would need to be budgeting for this for 2023, which is coming right up. So I think this is a good discussion to be having right now. And not that you have to leave it all, Mr. Maggie, but does anyone have any questions, additional ones for him before we get into the work plan? Okay, we'll keep the discussion going on this, and thanks for driving up to Richland Center today and having the discussion with us, and for putting this, your initial thoughts together. This is very helpful to start to flesh some of this out here. So agenda item number 12 is the Richland County Strategic Plan. And Mr. Langreck, if you want to handle work plan and your service consideration matrix for committees maybe separately, we can pass the motion separately if that works for you.
Can you hear me? Here we are. Yes, Mr. Chair, and maybe it might be easier to maybe approach 12B first with the matrix and then come back around to the work plan, which will probably merit a little bit more discussion, maybe not. So looking today on a multiple type of an approach here is potentially on this first part for a motion to approve the service consideration matrix, confirming it meets the intentions of the strategic plan and may potentially be distributed with resolutions associated with the administrator's financial planning. So to explain all that, this is kind of what it looks like. This is trying to capture, well, captures word for word, in fact, the language that we're using in the body of the strategic plan. You'll find on page 5, chapter 1, where it says considerations, as stated there, when facing difficult decisions, the county will answer the following questions to prioritize investments. So you'll see in this matrix, first column on the left here, grabs those different consideration points verbatim. The middle column is what I kind of myself and talking with Cheryl and Derek kind of imposed as to kind of further clarifying and putting some context around how that first column might be interpreted, and then allowing then for a response column of the information that we're looking to get back. To maybe put a little bit more context on this, how I visualize this matrix being utilized in conjunction with financial and capital planning is as the financial and capital plan are rolled out with recommendations, I'm visualizing having a series of resolution languages that's going to be to the effect of this committee is charged with the evaluation of these types of services. You have until this date and time to perform an assessment using this matrix as kind of your background and come back with courses of actions developed on X, Y, and Z and a recommendation to the strategic planning or to the county board on what's the best interest of in the county for future delivery of these types of services. So with that being said, and this kind of being the guide of what the conversation is going to encompass and making sure that we're meeting the goals of the strategic plan, looking for your feedback today on, is this what you had in mind on trying to gather this information out? To put that also in context on how we're going to arrive at getting that information. Right now, seeing it as a vehicle of charging oversight committees with support and support of administration and department heads and consultants as needed. So again, use this and bring back the answers that you're looking for. So I'll maybe pause right there, Mr. Chair.
So are you envisioning that during this upcoming budgeting process this summer that, let me list off several optional services that we provide, not mandated by the state. So Simons, UW Richland, Pine Valley Community Village, the fairgrounds, parks. Are you envisioning that this would be sent out to each one of their oversight committees and that this would be filled out by the members of the oversight committee answering these in order to determine if we're going to continue on with those services? Is that how you would envision this?
That's how I envision it, because we have on here what we want to consider, but really naming the responsible party of who's going to be considering it. I mean, you can certainly have an answer. I can fill this out for you and ask around for it, but is that going to have the merit and the weight versus coming from the actual representatives that are overseeing the services, which is kind of the intentions of representative type of a government. So how I plan on approaching this, and this ties into a conversation with finance and personnel that we'll have next week, is Tuesday there'll be a rollout on kind of, this is the capital plans with the wish list. This is the financial plans with all the wish list and all the good ideas and a lot of the strategic planning type of things like we had on here of, we'd like to see centralized HR and an HR department of finance and trying to have those things incorporated and costed. Obviously, that number is going to be much bigger, and we all know, than monies that we're going to have available. Come back on tentatively scheduled right now, June 17th. I plan on doing a public hearing or a public information session over at the Phoenix Center. Everybody, community invited, and saying this is the rollout on the county financial condition. This is our wish list on all the things that we think we need to do to make the county work for the next 5 years. Now, here's the recommendation from your administrator on what gets shifted, what gets bumped, what gets cut. With that, then, too, as we talked about, the current plan at hand is to try to preserve ARPA-type funds to try to potentially stretch some of our non-mandated services for perhaps a year, if possible, to allow then for an assessment by the Oversight Committee on, okay, Oversight Committee, you have a year to go out and try to find these different courses of actions that we can consider. If we don't have things back by such and such date, then we're tasking administrator to go forward with a plan that doesn't require any further county levy spendings and the liquidations and those types of things. So, but in performing that assessment from the supervisory committees who aren't just working on their own, but are still working with an administrator, with a department head, if we have money for consultants and community partners, to have some frame of reference on, when you're coming back and this is the recommendation, these are the talking points we want you to have as a committee on how you arrived at your recommendation, supporting that. If that all kind of makes sense.
It does make sense. So now some departments have mandated services that they provide, and then they also have unmandated services they provide. So I believe like the sheriff's department's mandated to have a jail, but the sheriff's department is not mandated to have sheriff's deputies. Am I right? Thought I heard Supervisor Luck say that at one point. So I'm assuming multiple departments are like that. I'm assuming HHS has pieces of that as well, where some of their stuff is mandated, others not. So would you be asking, so two things, have we figured out what's mandated and what's not? I thought Supervisor Luck maybe was working on a spreadsheet there. I've never seen it. And then the second part would be, is this form going to be just for departments to answer on non-mandated services? Is that kind of how does the mandated part and non-mandated fit into all this?
Yes, and it's going to tie into kind of the financial planning and what the recommendations that I see kind of going forward. An example of like so MIS and IT, it's not mandated type of a service. I don't think it's a good idea right now to consider not doing MIS or IT. I don't plan on bringing it forward to Public Works Committee to say, let's evaluate this, because in my opinion, that might be a wasted of effort. Again, my opinion. And we can have the discussion on, we really need to consider this type of services. But yes, like in a health and human services role, may be appropriate to, really come back and take a look and justifying why we need a mental health department or why we need nutrition or something of that nature might be what arrives at for that. For other services that are not mandated, I'm thinking, as an example, like in our education standing committee with UW, with extension, most of those are services provided. A majority of those are in the non-mandated assignment center. Assignment center conversation then also becomes is this assignment an auditorium conversation, or should this be a city county ad hoc conversation, and also including economic development, because we have a little bit different relationship with those. So, and I don't see necessarily a cookie cutter approach on come back with a course of action that looks like this, and this. I think it has to be a little bit more strategic on the different talking points that we've had on somewhere in between a spectrum of complete liquidation. We're not doing it hands off to, can we do it underneath the same model with some other type of funding source that we're not considering, and everything in between. But again, still using this format for your service matrix to really hone in on now service committee, when you're coming forward and meeting the course of actions and the criterias of us saying how much levy funds we think we can give to you. Did you really consider these types of things to justify it? It gives us a little bit more apples to apples, if you will.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. Any other questions, Mr. Langreich? Not, we're looking for a motion to something here. A motion to approve the service consideration matrix, confirming it meets the intentions of the strategic plan and may potentially be distributed with resolutions associated with the administrator's financial planning. Okay, motion by Cosgrove. Second by Frank. Further discussion? All those in favor say, oh, go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Question. So under the background, you had some questions under the work portion of it.
That's separate. Let's handle this one first, and then he'll go to this one. Yeah, there's two motions at the very top of the cover sheet. Or no, wait, maybe there aren't. We're still going to discuss it. Yeah, this just approves agenda item number 12B. We're then going to go to 12A. If you follow me now. Okay, thanks. No, that's okay.
I didn't make it the clearest. I apologize on that as well.
We don't have a motion under the work plan. We only have a recommended motion under the service consideration matrix. Okay. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. So you can use that now. So now if you want to go on to the work plan, Mr.
Okay.
Langer,
Uh,
we're at 12A now,
12A.
yes.
Yep, thank you. So the work plan, I don't think we're at a point yet where we're saying this is the final type of a thing. I'm starting to consider too that I don't know if we'll ever really hit a final. This is the thing because I think it's always going to be a moving target and continuing to reach and push us, which is a good thing. At some point though, we might want to solidify it and say, this is the plan today, and at least have a benchmark, but added dialogue here. So administration has continued to work on refinement of the work plan. The current draft will be presented as we have it here. Unlikely ready for adoption, as I just stuttered about. The administrator was looking for your guidance on plan formatting, namely, do you want to consider taking the strategic plan into our policy format, just as we kind of had with our establishment policy and redressing it to look like that? Or are you more comfortable with its current format? And the other aspect of it is to just kind of take a review on it and see where you think we're lining up right now. There's a lot of information we don't have with the estimated financial cost on a lot of these projects. And maybe I'll kind of leave it there and kick it back to yourself, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so last month was the first time we saw this work plan. So I don't know about other folks, and certainly welcome any other comments, but I went through it yesterday and I had some conversations too about, let's see, one or a couple of these. So I just was hoping I could walk through these, and in some cases we might want to get the committee to weigh in as a whole, and in others maybe it's just passing some comments on to you, Mr. Langreich. But there's a tactic under increased coordination, and that's on, let's see, the bottom of page 1 and the top of page 2 of the work plan. You want to scroll there. So it's the top of page 2. The final tactic is top of page 2.
What?
That's 3.
I'm on 3. Thank you. There we go. Oop.
Thanks.
There we go.
Supervisor Dentis is ahead of us here. Okay, so yes, it starts with coordinate community development and land use decision-making in Richland Center among institutional partners such as county, city, hospital, and school district. So that we're listed as the responsible committee there, and I wasn't sure that we should be, and I reached out to Troy Magid about this. Well, actually, first I reached out to Supervisor Glassbrenner, and then I reached out to Mr. Magid and found out some of the background on why this tactic is in there. And my belief now, after having those conversations, is that this should go to red and not to the Rules and Strategic Planning Committee. I don't know if folks want more background on it, but. Is anyone opposed to that change?
Opposed, but if we're gonna start doing the comprehensive plan here, this would be part of that. Us.
Well, this is just, that's what Supervisor Glassbrenner and I were talking about yesterday. This sounds like the comp plan, but this is just focused on Richland Center. Coordinate community development and land use decision-making in Richland Center. And then it started listing the hospital and the school district. It was getting very specific just to the city itself. And so Mr. Magid told me that this had to do with a lot of the discussions around housing, where the hospital was going to go. Just at the time, and if I'm restating what you told me incorrectly, come up to the mic and correct me, but there wasn't a lot of coordination happening, was his sense at the time. But now I think there's a lot more coordination happening, and it's happening under red. You've got the city and the county there. So they're actually handling those discussions.
You've talked to Jason Glassbrenner about this.
I did not talk to him.
You have not.
No.
Said you did. You said you talked to him yesterday.
No, I talked to Ingrid and Troy,
Okay.
not Jason. Oh, yeah, yeah, another glass burner, not that. Yeah, thanks. So it doesn't sound like anyone's opposed, so I think that one is probably okay to be changed. And then there's another one about identifying priority areas for commercial housing, et cetera. And I have to find what page that's on. Not finding it. Just found it here. Yes. It's page 3. Yep. And it's under support business attraction and retention under that strategy. And it's the second tactic under there. Yep. Got it right there on the screen. So identify priority areas in the county for future industrial, commercial, or residential development. And it lists red/strategic planning committee. I'm wondering if that should just be red. Not this. What do folks think? I feel less strongly about that one, but I'm wondering, are we really going to do that in this committee?
Mr. Chair. Does this kind of depend on what it looks like when we're developing this comprehensive plan? If we decide to go forward with that, wouldn't, it sounds like a lot of it would just be bringing in information that's already been worked on or compiled and figuring those pieces out? Or does that mean actually having this type of discussion? Because I think that's maybe what you're asking. I mean, because I do think that would be a portion of what we'd want in a comprehensive plan. But are we having the discussion, or are we simply getting that information?
I would think we'd be receiving it from red, and then that would get incorporated into the comp plan. But we wouldn't be in this committee talking about where should there be future residential development in the county. I wasn't imagining that would be us, but I'm not
Is
super
that
opposed.
only the red committee that does that in the whole county?
That's the question. Should they?
Right.
Maybe we should leave it here.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so too.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was that question again?
Question was, is red the only committee in the county that's going to be looking at that? And I felt that we should have more county input.
She said no. And then Mr. Frank, and then we'll go to Mr. Oh, yeah, Mr. Maggie, go ahead.
I was just going to bring up that statutes require a plan commission. So this is typically an independent body at a city or village, oftentimes at a county. It's your zoning committee, but it doesn't have to be. And so the plan commission is the one that formally guides the strategic plan and makes a recommendation to the governing body for adoption. When we do planning, we generally include the plan commission and additional individuals who are maybe more diversified around the government or city or economic development or whatever, but there is requirement in the statute for a plan commission. And so I have to refresh myself, but I believe as a county, you have the ability to create that or assign a body to do that.
And if we're in charge of the comp plan, say that we decide to make that move, that this committee is in charge of it, would whoever's in charge of the comp plan be the same as the planning commission, or would those be separate?
I can't answer that right now. I'd have to look,
Okay.
but I know that body is required, that planning commission is required. So
Okay.
not to muddy the waters more, but.
I wonder if we should just leave it as is for now. Okay. Keep skipping over that. Let's go over that one. And then my last one was on the mentor program and outgoing meetings. So this is under, help me here, the education. Oh yeah. Invest in education of county board members.
Where are you?
I'm on page 4 now. It's the second to last strategy in the first column. Then they're the top 2 tactics. So creation of mentor program is the first tactic. Hold informal meetings with outgoing supervisors is the second tactic. So I just had some ideas for start date, it says 2024. I think that could be 2022 because we've already done it.
Yeah,
So
we're already doing it.
we don't need to wait on that one. So for both of those tactics, and then I was thinking that the targets, it says future policy or ordinance change. And I was thinking more of a target would be 100% of new supervisors being mentored. And the second one could be 100% of new supervisors meeting with outgoing supervisors. And if you all want to leave it as the vice chair, that's okay, but I'd feel a little more comfortable with the rules and strategic planning committee on that one. And obviously I took the lead on it because our chair asked us to, and I'm the chair of this committee, but. So those are my thoughts. Is anyone opposed to any of those changes?
Thank
Okay,
you, Troy. I mean,
okay, so that's all I got. Anyone else have any changes they'd like to suggest on the work plan?
I mean, it is a work in progress at times too, right?
I don't foresee us not stopping making changes on this. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the nature of it. We're gonna, as we continue to assess and what's feasible, what's not feasible, this we might be able to do sooner, this we might be able to do later. Costings are gonna change. So yeah, there'll be much opportunities to change this.
typically with documents like this, delegating here and delegating there, you run into what we called turf battles back in the old corporate days. So I don't anticipate that here, though. I think that everyone is willing probably to shoulder and do what they can, and determining where it comes from, we can probably decide that down the road, because many of the same people are going to be doing multiple roles here. So I'm happy with it.
Okay. All right, well, thanks for the discussion on that one. So that takes us to agenda item number 13, supervisor attendance at WCA conference. And Chair Brewer asked us to discuss this at our next meeting. And all I did is I just pulled in Rule 15D, because I'll let you grab your phone first.
Pass hearing.
It's okay. So the only guidance we have right now on conference attendance that I'm aware of anywhere is this Rule 15D. And it says that supervisors can be reimbursed for registration fees, mileage, per diems, which would be like, I don't know, $30, $40. I'm not sure which, according to our regular per diem schedule. Meals and lodging for attendance at multi-day conferences or conventions held outside the county. Those shall be limited to 2 per calendar year unless specific approval is granted by finance and personnel. Approval by finance and personnel is required at any out-of-state event. I'll hand it off to you, Mr. Brewer, so we can talk about this.
Attendance at the WCA conferences, if you attended the training session that we had this spring, was excellent. I've attended a few of those over the years, but I've only gone to 2 statewide WCA because of COVID. It was interrupted. Janetta and I went to the winter legislative session when she was still chair. And then last fall, I was fortunate enough to go to the WCA conference in La Crosse. Steve was there, Melissa was there, Clint was there. So between the 4 of us, we attended a lot of sessions, and from those sessions, we've come up with a few ideas. And one of them was the comprehensive ambulance survey that we're doing right now. So there's a lot of information that can be gleaned from those things, and so I'm selling the idea of attendance. Okay, and if anybody wants to attend those, they ought to be able to. But we can't afford to send 21 board members to the conference. So it's my thought that we could perhaps set up a rotating schedule. Well, first of all, probably chairman and vice chairman need to go if they want to. Maybe we then could look at the chairs of our standing committees. give me your thoughts on it. We can't send everybody, but we ought to have representation. Cost, it was, well, when you throw in the room and all that, I mean, you're looking at, I suppose, $300 at minimum.
Well, this year it's in Sauk County, so that I'm assuming people could drive back and forth or would prefer to drive back and forth from Sauk County, but we could figure out the answer to that question on cost. Yeah, you're trying right now, Mr. Langrick. I'm assuming also our per diems on committees are going to be dropping since we went from 18 to 9 standing committees. So I'm also assuming we might have more room in our budget than we have in the past. I'm not saying everyone should go, nor would everyone want to go, but that might kind of.
No, I'm shaking my head because I don't think people are going to have less meetings. I think once this rolls out and we start going to the committee that we're supposed to go to, I think that's going to be pretty level, that cost to the county, which is a good cost. That's how the county does business.
So WCA member county delegates 175, state officials 210. Newly elected county official is nothing.
Well, do we want to, I don't know that we need to adopt a rule on this, but I'm not sure. Well, I don't know how we need to do this. I think what you were asking for was a discussion with us,
Right.
About what we think about it. Right. So do folks have thoughts on maybe about how many people we should try to shoot for to go to the conference?
And driving back and forth is well and good, except I'll put in a plug then for networking. If you're there, sometimes some of the most vital conversations you have might be, after the conference at the reception area, and they put on pretty good, all the vendors there, many vendor booths, and so that's usually well attended by all counties.
I can speak and correct me if my memory is wrong, Marty, but I think last fall when we went up to La Crosse, I think they had about 4 different presentations going on at the same time. Was there 4? Maybe there was 4 or 5 different presentations going at the same time. So if you're really adamant on trying to cover all the bases, then send them 4 or 5.
The breakout sessions are concurrent, so.
Well, I think it'd be great if you just encourage people at the regular county board meetings to sign up for it. Maybe that's the way to do it if you announce it as our chair.
Well, but I'd like to be able to tell them the county will reimburse your cost. We'll pay your mileage to and from, or we'll pay for room and board. And those are all considerations. Or if we don't pay for room, will we pay for your lunch? Will we pay for your evening meal? Well, these are things that we need to establish a policy for.
Well, the county board rule already says that we will pay for all of those things. Yeah. Unless I'm reading this wrong.
2.
Rule 15, for up to 2 conferences a year, multi-day conferences or conventions is how we.
Pretty generous.
It's pretty generous. So
For every board member up to 2 conferences a year.
Every board, it doesn't address how many board members. It just says it's open-ended right now. We could adjust the rule to make it a little more prescriptive.
Grant County has every board member there.
Wow.
For the duration, so.
Mr. Chair,
Grant.
just based on our current, I don't think at this point we have to be concerned that all 21 members will be attending. So,
Let's say then, we'd say chair, vice chair, and up to 3 additional members. Is that a reasonable number?
are we capping it though? Because currently, as the rule states,
And then,
Leave it open-ended.
in addition, new members can go on top of that, I think.
Oh, their registration fees are free. Is
Yes,
that correct?
registration fees
But
are
we,
free.
but then there's the lodging, the mileage, the meals, and of course, meals are only reimbursable if there's not food being offered at the conference. I think that's in Rule 15D here too.
Right.
So just to
Those
clarify,
receptions, they feed you at the reception, so
probably not going to be getting reimbursements for meals, most likely.
if you like hors d'oeuvres and shrimp cocktail and that stuff, that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, I don't think our current rules don't limit it. So I think the question is, do we want to either amend the rule to limit it, or do we want to create like a formal policy, or do we want to just leave this kind of informal and just encourage everyone to go? Supervisor
So
Frank.
what's the process for a committee member to go? Do they have to say, hey, Clint, Marty, I want to go, and what do I need to do to turn in my paperwork? And do I get the state rate of 119? What, is there a process for that now? Because if there is, that's real easy to say, oh, we have 22 or 21 people that want to go. I guess we need to, I can't see we're ever going to have that many, just with everything going on right now.
right, but for instance, Bob, you would be likely to be a candidate, I would think, because you go to conferences. Done it before, you know the worth. So, but I mean, you can refer them to me, and I'll refer them to Derek, and he'll set it up. But how many do you want me to refer? Right.
Julie, can you come up to a mic just because, yeah, otherwise.
I'm just wondering how much is in the budget already set aside for this? If the rule states that supervisors can go to 2 per year, there must be some already allocated into the budget. And knowing how much exactly that is and where we're at with that could determine how many we decide would be eligible to go.
Concur, and we've had discussions on that and talking with Derek. A couple of the decision points yet that I think we need to reach is first off, kind of seeing if our configuration is going to work how we think it is right now with the standing committees, and if one meeting a month is going to suffice in meeting our to take care of business. And then that kind of tails into the conversation too on, as we've talked about, do we want to continue with the per diem for a committee, or do we want to establish just an annual salary for our county board members, which makes the budgeting piece of it easier then, because then you're going to lock that number down. From that point, then it would kind of, you'd have a better understanding then on what out of our county board fund that we can allocate or reallocate then towards those training types of needs. So we've had discussions on it, and future decision points required, plus kind of also teasing out and feeling how our new structure is going to work for us. But I agree with your mindset on getting those in place.
I think this is one of those occasions, Sean, for the inquiries to other counties. Not sure who can do that, but I'd like to know how other counties do it. I mean, I gave you my idea of how Grant County is, but how does Vernon County do it? They're more comparable. How does Crawford County do it? And since I've been on the board, it was never, there was some mention of it in the past, and then COVID hit and we quit going, and even before that, I think it wasn't really recommended that you go, really no talk about it. And now I see us being more involved in the counties association. We have a tremendously well put together, if you've all seen it, proposed legislation that we're going to submit to the counties association asking for increased state help. And if the county adopts that, I'm sure they will. I don't know why they wouldn't. We certainly want to be there to talk about it.
Well, so I was just looking on their website real quick to see if they have a deadline. I don't see one, but how about we just do a little research between now and the next rules and strategic planning meeting? And this is what I jotted down. We need to look into the county board budget. We could research how other counties do this. And then we also need to establish a process for how would you, as a county board member, sign up. So I think we can figure all these things out and maybe bring something back to the July meeting and go from there. Okay, so helpful discussion. Thanks for ensuring we were talking about that. Anyone else want to mention anything under that item? Okay, that takes us to 14 future agenda items. So Supervisor Gentis.
Yes. That June 17th meeting you were talking about for the public, what time is that?
At the Phoenix Center later on right now for 9:30 a.m. on Friday, June 17th.
Just wanna- You may already address this, I don't know. I just want to, at a personal side, I do not like plaques for myself. I had some, but I always get rid of them, so. Plaques, you know? However, every time I come up the stairs here, I see the Burnell Coy plaque on the wall. And I assume, maybe people who have been in that role as the clerk for over 30 years, that maybe we should address having one for Victor Vlasic.
Okay, thanks for that. Chair Brewer.
Nothing.
Okay, Mr. Frank.
Nothing.
Mr. Cosgrove. Ms. Fleming.
Nothing.
Ms. Glassburn.
I would like to continue the discussion on the comprehensive plan, especially after we hear back from Land and Zoning, I guess. What's the name of that standing committee now?
You got it, Land and Zoning.
Yes,
Yep.
okay.
Okay, so we'll have the comp plan on again with a report from Land and Zoning. Okay, that takes us to adjournment. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn to the first Thursday in July. That's the 7th, July 7th Thursday, July 7th at 10 a.m. in this room.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by
second it.
Brewer, second by Fleming. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.